Magic. Hello and welcome.
Hola y bienvenidos a todos.
I will give it just about a minute to allow people to come in, and then we'll get started.
Esperamos más o menos un minuto para los que todavía están llegando, pues empezamos.
Hello, Miss Lisa James in the chat. Welcome. Okay. Okay, let's begin. Before we get started, I do want to introduce Emily, who will be interpreting for us today. So I'm going to have her explain how to use that resource.
Hi, this is Emily. I'll be doing the Spanish interpreting today. Hola a todos, mi nombre es Emily. Estoy proporcionando servicios de interpretación en español. En un momentico vamos a encender la función de interpretación. Cuando lo hacemos, verá al fondo de su ventana de Zoom un icono de un globo. Haciendo clic ahí se va a conectar con la función de interpretación para escoger el idioma que prefiere, o inglés o español. Si se está conectando con móvil, empuje los 3 puntitos en la pantalla, de ahí escoge interpretación, pues su idioma preferido, pues done o listo, y ya está conectada. Si tiene cualquier dificultad, por favor, comunícase con nosotros en el chat. Yo espero que disfrutan la presentación de hoy. Gracias. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to put you in the interpretation room. And hopefully that worked. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us for today's webinar on bookkeeping and record keeping for the Georgia Thriving Childcare Business Academy. My name is Beth, and I will be your presenter for today. I am part of a national team of childcare business coaches and trainers from Civitas Strategies, working with the Thriving Childcare Business Academy to bring Georgia providers critical information, resources, and skill building to support business success and sustainability. So welcome. And I see some of you are already doing this in the chat. Lovely. If I can have everyone put their name and their PDS number in the chat, that's going to help us verify our attendance so that we can award you your certificates quickly and correctly. And then feel free to give us your business name or tell us anything else about yourself that you'd like us to know in the chat as well. So thank you for doing that. Wonderful. Today's session will last about an hour, and we'll definitely have time for Q&A. So if you have questions, please ask them. Feel free to use the chat throughout as needed. And I look forward to engaging in conversation. We'll stop at a couple of points and I'll ask for questions, and then definitely at the end for any remaining questions that you have. And then before we really get into it, just our quick disclaimer, the information contained here has been prepared by Civitas Strategies and is not intended to constitute legal, tax, or financial advice. The Civitas Strategies team has used reasonable efforts in collecting, preparing, and providing this information, but does not guarantee its accuracy, completeness, adequacy, or currency. The publication and distribution of this information is not intended to create, and receipt does not constitute any attorney-client or any other advisory relationship, and reproduction of this information is expressly prohibited. Okay, so in today's conversation, we are going to cover both basic bookkeeping and record keeping. And along the way, we're going to answer these questions. Definitely, why keep records? What records you should be keeping? How should you maintain those records? And then on the bookkeeping end, how you can account for funds coming in and going out of your business. So, oops, sorry. So let's start by sort of defining terms a little bit. It's easy to confuse or sort of combine bookkeeping and record keeping. They certainly relate, but they are different things. Every childcare business must have at its heart a basic system of accounting, bookkeeping, for costs and revenue. And this can often serve as the first marker of financial health for your business, right? It's one of the first things that you can do to really start down a path of financial stability. A solid and complete record-keeping system can help you to easily access your documents when needed and save you any worry about misplacing something critical. You'll also be able to find something when you need it or when it's requested by a funder or a government representative. So, practically speaking, clear records allow you to quickly understand your business needs and the day-to-day operations. So we're going to begin with record keeping. Keeping good records is going to help you a lot with your bookkeeping. And please feel free again to put any questions that you have in the chat, and I will try to answer them along the way. So there are several key records that you should maintain regardless of your business size. For example, all businesses should keep their state and federal tax returns, including all supporting and backup documentation. Businesses should also keep their current and past employee names and addresses, timesheets, and pay stubs. Generally, records should also include bank statements, insurance documents, contracts, loans and mortgages, purchase receipts, customer bills, profit and loss statements, and balance sheets. It's a lot. There are additional types of records that will be useful to keep depending on your organization type. So for example, for larger, sorry about that. For larger organizations, you should include a depreciation schedule if that applies to you. Nonprofits or corporations with the board of directors should also save relevant meeting minutes, documentation, and incorporation paperwork. As a general rule, all childcare providers should save all paperwork related to their business, including licensing and regulation. So how long do we keep these records, right? Different types of records should be kept for different lengths of time. And some are dependent on the specific needs of your business. So for example, we recommend keeping all tax records for 7 years. That number comes from, it's the max needed in cases where you're claiming a loss. But the minimum that you need to keep them is at least 3 years from the date you filed the original return, or 2 years from the date you paid the tax, whichever one is later. Which is hard. There's a lot to remember. We're going to talk a little bit as we go through about how to help you keep track of these deadlines and these how long you need to keep things for. Accounting documents, including invoices and checks, should be kept for 5 years. Payroll records and print time cards, if you use them, should be held for between 3 and 7 years, just like your tax records. For nonprofits or corporations that complete audit reports, plan to keep those records indefinitely. Annual statements should remain in your records indefinitely as well. Other important records and the amounts of time to keep them include personnel files for 4 to 5 years. Past insurance policies and records for 3 years, and contracts for 3 years after they've been completed. As you can imagine, right, it can be useful, as I said, to create a system, to create a record retention schedule for your business outlining how long you should keep copies of each type of document. there's a lot to remember there, and keeping in your head, how long do I need to keep this thing for, will be a lot helpful, or it would be much more helpful to have a guide, right? So you can create a guide for that. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So storing your records, right? Here you have some options. Excuse me. So the perks of maintaining digital records are that they don't take up space to store, physical space to store, and there are many free or low-cost options that are simple to use. Setting up your digital records can be as simple as saving digital copies or photos of your documents to your computer. You can also take pictures on your phone, and that can either that can back up to Google or any other cloud system that you're using. You can, of course, do the good old-fashioned storing paper records. A paper record keeping system can be one of the simplest to set up, right? But if you are keeping paper records, you want to make sure that they are clearly organized and labeled, so that can help you find your documents when you need them. There are some simple tools that you can use to organize a paper-based system. This might include file folders or hanging folders. For a larger accordion file or something like that, or even a cabinet storage, right? Either way, whether you're setting up a digital or a paper-based record keeping system, getting everything set up is going to take some time, right? And I want you to think of this as an investment, right? This time is an investment in your business. An investment of a couple of hours and a few file folders even can give you the peace of mind of knowing that your records are in order and easily accessible to you, to somebody else if it need be. And one of the ways that you can help things stay organized is by using a records index. So a records index acts like a reference guide. So you can easily look up and find a certain file that you might need. If your this is not just for you, right? So if you need to find a record, you need to be able to have a system that works for you, because you're not going to remember necessarily where everything lives. So that index is going to be helpful for you, but also for someone else. So in case somebody else in your business needs to look up or needs to locate something when you're not available, there will come a time, right, when somebody needs a record and you won't be there to find it. Maybe you'll be sick, maybe you'll be out, maybe you'll be on vacation, fingers crossed. There will come a time when somebody needs something and you can't help them do it. And a good record index is going to make your system accessible when it needs to be. A simple version of this, like I said, might just be some file folders that are labeled with sections that make everything easy to find, easy to access. A more complex version of this might be a spreadsheet or a table that indicates where each important record can be found. And I will say also, I stress that when you're coming up with this index and how to sort or file or keep things organized, do what works for you and your brain. I will say this probably several times throughout our time together today, that the very best record keeping system is the one that you are actually going to use, right? So do something that's going to feel comfortable for you, that's going to be accessible to others when it needs to be, right? Do what works for you and your particular brain and how it works. What works for me may not work for you, may not work for the person sitting next to you, etc., right? But whatever you do, you got to do it. The importance of maintaining your records. Maintaining accurate records for your childcare business is important to providing quality care and protecting the health and safety of the children in your care. Keeping records on things like staffing info, emergency contact info, medication protocols for the children in your care, etc., right? These are all things that you want to be able to access when you need them quickly, right? It is also obviously going to be helpful for any audits, or in cases where maybe you're looking to expand, right? And you need to have information to show potential investors or to apply for grants or to show banks for loans, right? You want to be able to have all of this information accessible and easy to find. That's really the key, right? That you have it and that you know how to find it when you need it. Your records are crucial to your business, and being able to access them easily can save you frustration, time, and money. Whatever record, because what blah blah blah, words are hard. Water. Whatever record keeping system works for you, plan to maintain it and plan to back up that important information. Again, the best record keeping system is the one that you will actually do. So this means first creating a habit for yourself. Some might file things right when they cross their desk. Some might prefer to hold everything and file once a month or so. Either way, make sure it works for you and that you're able to keep up with it, right? What you don't want to do is have a situation where you set some kind of plan and then you don't do it. And then you end up with a huge pile of records, or you end up with something that feels daunting to go back to, and then maybe you don't, right? You want to do something that's going to work consistently for you and get you into the habit of actually doing it. We also strongly suggest keeping 2 sets of records stored in 2 separate places. So maybe it's your office computer and your home files, for example. One set provides a backup to the other. This might mean potentially keeping a paper copy of digital storage. So printing out something that exists primarily online. You can also keep digital files in 2 separate places. Maybe it's your office computer and Dropbox or Google Drive or another cloud, something like that, for example. Your phone can also be a place to store, whether it's images, you can keep files on your phone, that's another place, right? You just want to make sure that you have a backup in case your first or one of your places fails in some way, which can possibly happen. Some tips on getting started. Creating a simple log that can help you organize your record keeping system as you get started. We sort of talked about this a little bit before, right? All of those records that you just went through, right? That we just went over moments ago. Write down what you have, write down what you should be keeping, how long you should be keeping it, and how often maybe they need to be updated, right? And of course, where they're located, and both places where they are located. Write it all down so that you have sort of the map and the key to be able to find the records easily when you need to find them. And then another thing to keep in mind as you're creating your filing system and deciding how you want to do this is that, key records and data like social security numbers, addresses, things like that, these need to have privacy protection. So you need to think about security as well. Be sure to lock up sensitive information that you keep on hard copy, right? Physically lock it. There are options to lock digital files as well with password protection, or to use multiple encryption technology on cloud servers, things like that. Whether your files are on paper, on your hard drive, or in the cloud, you want to make sure that you're adding the maximum reasonable amount of protection that can help you mitigate the risk of a data breach. And then, keep people who can access that kind of information, that kind of data, to a minimum, right? Yes, we want to make sure that your records are accessible when it needs to be, so that somebody else can step into that position if you were unable to do so. But you also don't need everyone in your business having access to sensitive information like this. So make sure you balance those 2 things out. One thing that you can use with your record keeping system that will, not only help you maintain the historical information that you're keeping, but can also help prepare you for future or reoccurring tasks, is something called a tickler system. So a tickler system, or a tickler, is basically it's a note, document, or folder, digitally or on paper, that has reminders, upcoming information, or to-do items that come up every month or every quarter. Ticklers can prepare you for your, let's say, your quarterly taxes, or your annual reporting, or they can remind you of monthly follow-ups or renewals, for example. This can be as easy as a Post-it note that you put on your calendar, maybe for the 3 months ahead at the end of the quarter, you've got a physical Post-it note on your physical calendar to help remind you when that time comes around, you need to do that thing. Or it can be a reminder that you put on your phone, or in your calendar app, right? A tickler is just going to help keep your process moving along. And you can use them for reoccurring tasks, or you can use them to remind you, to do any part of your record keeping system, right? This is a great way to sort of keep you moving forward with your record keeping and to help you keep the habit going. Additionally, get outside help if needed, right? There's no shame in getting help. If you are able to, hire an outside bookkeeper, right? Be clear about their activities and what they're doing, and remember that the ultimate responsibility for bookkeeping, which we'll get into a little bit more in a moment, and keeping your accounting records for your business lies with you. So even if you have a bookkeeper to handle some functions, you should still maintain knowledge of general best practices, and awareness of your business's record keeping. So even if you have somebody stepping in to help you with this, you want to make sure that you still know the process, as far as the bookkeeping part of it, that you still know how they're keeping track of your money, and how it's going in and out. We'll discuss that more in a moment. But additionally, bookkeepers aren't necessarily going to be hanging on to all of the other records that you need to keep. So there are probably services that will do both of those for you, but again, that's going to be a cost. But even having a bookkeeper, you're still going to be maintaining records yourself. You're still going to need to be aware of all of things. So keep in mind, how much that you still need to be hands-on, even if you have help coming in to help you with this. There are online and computer-based tools that can help you with things like invoicing, time tracking, payroll, paying bills, etc. There are lots of choices on this. This is touching a tiny bit more into bookkeeping here as well. But if you're considering using an app or a software program to help you with your bookkeeping, help you with your record keeping as well, just a few things to be thoughtful about, right? So be clear about what your needs actually are, and what your budget is for that, right? You can pay a lot of money for a platform that maybe does 100 different things, but you only need 3 of those things, right? Is there a better choice for you? Consider using a trial period or a demo to understand the available features and make sure you're comfortable with it. And then think about mobile accessibility, and how it can be accessed by your team and your staff when it needs to be. And then I see a question in the Q&A. If using a pay app system such as Square app, should I print those invoices even though the system shows every transaction? That's a really great question. And I think I would say yes, whether it's printing them or PDFing them and storing them somewhere else. I wouldn't rely on having it only within the Square app, right? They may be subject to, I don't know, a data breach, a hack, a something, right? Where that information may not be available to you when you need it. I think being in the habit of maybe either printing those off monthly or PDFing them and putting them in digital storage, with some regularity would be best practice rather than just keeping that only in one place. That's a really good question. Thank you. Okay, other questions. We're going to switch gears in a moment and really talk about bookkeeping, but yes, thank you. Margaret just posted the guide that you can find in both English and Spanish for record keeping on the resource website. So use that for sure. Are there other questions about record keeping or how to or where to store, or any other questions about that I can answer either in the chat or in the Q&A before we move on to our bookkeeping content? Okay, if you think of more, feel free to post them. We'll also have time near the end for questions as well. So none. I appreciate that. Thank you, Tracy. I can see nor hear any of you, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, let's talk about bookkeeping. This conversation on bookkeeping flows really well from what we're talking about with record keeping, right? So now you've got your records, you're keeping them in an organized system, you know where everything is. That is going to help you as you keep track of your books, right? Bookkeeping is the process of tracking and recording a business's financial transactions. There are two basic steps to bookkeeping. First is opening a business bank account. And if that is something that you need guidance on, the Georgia DeKalb Thriving Childcare Business Academy has a resource for that as well. That can help you with that. And then second, after you have your business bank account, you want to adopt a bookkeeping system, right? So we're going to go through that. I've got 4 steps. Is it 4? Yes, it's 4. 4 steps to get you into a system for bookkeeping. So let's go through that now. So step 1 is simple enough, right? Determine how you will account for funds coming in and going out. There are 2 basic methods in accounting. One is the accrual method, which is a bit more complex and is based on when an expense or when revenue is taken on or accrued, right? So for example, if you're using the accrual method, the moment you receive a credit card bill, the amount owed would be taken from your assets versus when you actually pay the bill. So you're thinking about the money leaving you're thinking about the money in a sort of at a different time, the flow at a different time, if that makes sense. If you're using the cash method, this money or this amount would be taken from your assets when the bill is paid. So the cash method is a bit more common, not a bit. The cash method is much more common for childcare businesses, and it's less challenging. So it's based on when things are actually paid or received. So as an example, let's look at revenues, right? So when a child is in your care for a week, let's say a parent owes you $200. Under the accrual method, that $200 is considered income at that time, even if you don't have the money yet. Under the cash method, the $200 wouldn't be considered income until the parent actually gives you the check and you've deposited it. So when the money is actually in your bank account. Questions about that before I move on? Okay. So step 2. Thank you. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much to those of you who are giving me the like, no, go for it, move on in the chat. I love it. Step 2 is to decide how you're going to record those transactions, right? So for this, you want to start by listing out your revenue streams that your business has. And here on the screen, you can see, these are the categories that these are common ones that your business may have. You may have more or fewer or slightly different categories, but these are basics. And these are the categories that you're going to want to use to track all of the money that's coming into your business. So be thinking about when money comes in, what kind of money is it, right? These are, as I said, these are the common ones. You may have different ones. They may be similar. Then step 3 is to do that exact same thing with your expense categories. So again, these are common categories. You want to list out all of the places where money is leaving from and why that money is leaving, right? It can be tempting to break down your expenses into really small, complicated categories. And we suggest keeping them quite simple, at least in the beginning, as you get used to the process and start making this a habit, right? Similar to your record keeping, you don't need to dive all the way into the deep end when you're doing this, right? You just want to wade in a little bit, make sure you're getting your bases covered. And you can always add or change these categories later if you need to. It's much easier to get more detailed from a simple system that you understand than it is to start really, really detailed and then kind of have to pull yourself back a little, right? So keep that in mind. And then step 4 is to set up a schedule to actually review and then record those transactions. You're going to want to do this. I like the steps. I appreciate that. You're going to want to do this at least monthly. Look through, record all of your revenue sources, and then do the same, record all of your expenses, right? It might seem tedious to record each transaction, but it's important in terms of understanding your profitability by tracking exactly where your money is coming from and going to. Once you have recorded your revenue and expenses for the month, you're going to total up each category. You can subtract your expenses from your revenue, and that's going to tell you what your profit is. If that number is negative, that's a loss for that time period. If that number is positive, that's a profit, obviously, right? So if you're profitable, you may want to consider holding on to some of that profit, right? Leaving it in the business for a rainy day, or, using it to help pay your bills. The steps themselves are pretty simple, right? See what's coming in, categorize it, see what's going out, categorize those, and then compare them. Questions on any of that before we move on a little bit. Okay. As you have questions, please throw them. You would like the steps again. I don't have a slide of them all together, but I will go just quickly through them for you again. Thank you for asking. So yeah, step 1, decide what kind of accounting you're going to do, whether it's the accrual method or more likely the cash method. Step 2 is to record your transactions, your revenue categories, your revenue transactions. And again, these categories may be exactly what you need, maybe a little different than what you need. But you're going to record each of your revenue categories and you're going to list those out. You're going to do the same for your expenses. And then you're going to compare those, right? So you're going to go through your month, add up all of the revenue that you got for that month. You're going to add up all of the expenses that you paid out for that month. And then you are going to subtract your expenses from your revenue to let you know if you had a profit for that month or for that time period. As I said, you can certainly do this more frequently if that makes sense for your business. Wouldn't really suggest doing it less frequently because you want to get a good idea of what your business is doing in a month, right? And you can use that to build your budget. You can use that to, estimate your cash flow. You can use that monthly information to do a lot of work as you think about your financial health and the financial stability of your business. I'm saying a lot of things that we're not, or I'm dipping into other topic, I'm mentioning other topics like cash flow, like monthly budget, things like that. These are all things that you can get. Can I see the first one again? Yes, absolutely. Do we have questions about? Is there a way to get them sent to me in email? There is definitely a way for you to go on to the Decal site and download the bookkeeping resource that is there, and that will have all of the steps there for you and more information than what is on the slide. So I suggest you do that. I will have that link for you. Or Margaret, if you're able to throw it in the chat, that would be great. But I will show you that link once I get sort of to the end of the slideshow here. Perfect. Great. And yes, you'll have a recording of the webinar as well. Are there questions about accrual versus cash? Does that make sense? I know somebody wanted to go back to this. Perfect. There's the bookkeeping guide for you. It will have all of the information that you're seeing on the screen, much of the information that I am saying out loud as well. So it'll give you a good full picture of of these 4 steps and how to work them into what you're doing. I think there's also a template in there that you can use so that you don't have to, reinvent the wheel on these revenue categories and that. So yeah, choosing your method of accounting, listing out all of the places where you have revenue coming in from, listing out all of the places where you have expenses going out from or going out to, and then comparing those to see if you're profitable on at least a monthly basis. Checking notes to make sure I said everything that I needed to say on here. Yes. Okay. I'm going to skip here to our pro tips, right? So some of the things to think about as you are going through those steps, right? Label your receipts as you are, spending, buying supplies, buying whatever for your business. Labeling your receipts is going to help you, as it says, remember what category you place them under, right? And all of that, as you do it with frequency, is going to help you, it's going to help put those categories into your brain, and you're gonna learn it over time, right? But yeah, it's as simple as at the top of your receipt, supplies, or whatever category it falls in for you. Stick to that regular schedule, choose a time that works best for you. Again, I wouldn't go longer than monthly, but weekly or bi-weekly may work for the number of transactions that your business is actually having over the course of that time period. That may be a more comfortable amount of time for you. Oh, great. Next month, they're going to be in the same, for this webinar, or for the webinar next month, you will be talking about building a budget. So you'll see actually how building a budget truly relates to this record keeping and to bookkeeping. All of these things are going to go hand in hand. Thanks for that. Yeah, consider a electronic system over time. You can absolutely start this on paper. You can do this on an Excel sheet. There are software platforms or other things that you can download to help you with this, that will provide maybe some of that automation or those reminders that we talked about, like the tickler system, right, from our record keeping chat. We all think of QuickBooks when we think about accounting software. QuickBooks is great, but it's very complicated. There's a lot to it. It may be more than what you actually need. Again, as we suggested before, look into some of those if that's something that appeals to you, and use the demos, use the 2-week trial periods to give it a shot. Any questions on tips, or does anybody have any tips that they use that they would like to drop into the chat to share with others? I think that's always great. I'm sure those of you in the room are at different points maybe in your bookkeeping or your record keeping journey. Some of us may be pile of receipts on the counter. That's okay. There's something that you can do with that to help you with that. Some of us may have more complicated indices or are using an electronic system. So if you have anything that you'd like to throw in the chat to let people know that works for you, that's always nice, I think, for folks to see what's working in the real world, right? Got a bag full of receipts that you need to do something with. Absolutely. So good. You've got a good place to start, right? You know, consider taking that bag, write what the expenses are for those receipts, categorize them, put them in a folder maybe. There's always somewhere to go that can help you take it to the next level, right, of your record keeping journey, I'll say. Thank you for sharing that, right? Because I think a lot of people might be shy about saying like, yeah, I'm at the bag of receipts point. But that's okay, right? We're all where we are. It's okay. Any other thoughts, questions, tips, anything like that you want to throw in the chat or the Q&A? I've been looking for a machine that can insert them to, and it'll separate them for you. Does that actually exist? That sounds great. Make 2 copies of all receipts, as they tend to fade out over the years. Yes, that's a great point, and thank you for that. Oh, neat. Absolutely, right? Receipts are going to fade. So yeah, if your primary copy, right, is a physical copy of a receipt, maybe from the grocery store or from wherever, yeah, those are going to fade out over time. I think that's a really great reminder, right? So maybe for some things like that, you've got, you know, 2 copies or 3 copies even. Oh, interesting. There is a machine. I love that. Yeah. I can imagine that is a perhaps expensive machine, I wonder. But yeah, whatever's going to work for you, right? If that is like investing in a piece of equipment that is going to help you with your process, do it, right? That's great. Whatever the very best process for all of this is, whatever you're going to actually do, right? Lean into what your schedule, your brain, your business, your timing, what that's going to allow you to do. Yeah, if you want to, if you would like to share the name of that machine, I imagine folks are very interested in that. I use a 3-inch notebook with file folders, adding the month in the place of the receipts. Great. Yeah, making 2 copies. Wonderful. Still looking for it. Well, great. Yeah. If you can come up with the name of that machine, I imagine many people in the room are curious about it. Great. Yeah. Some of us are using file folders. That's great. There's nothing that says you need to move to, you know, some intense filing cabinet or something like that, right? You can, you know, it doesn't need to be much more complicated than some file folders. Melissa says, how do I see others' questions? There was just one question in the actual Q&A portion, Melissa. It was our question about the Square app, which we answered. File folders, great. Okay. Let me just move on to our next little slide here, just to sort of recap as we're finishing up. I love that you're all putting what you're doing into the chat. I think it's really great for small business owners to see what other small business owners are using, right? We can't see other responses in the chat. Oh, got you. I see. Okay, my bad. I hope I'm reading out enough of them. Some of us are using file folders. Thank you for letting me know, Amanda. I appreciate that. Some folks are keeping track in a notebook. We've got Miss Lisa James looking for a name of a machine. Epson. Okay, so Epson, I guess, makes a machine called Rapid Receipt Scanner. Look that up and see if that's helpful for you. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate you putting that resource out for everyone. Some folks are using Google Sheets, and then it stays on the cloud. That's great, right? So you've got your backup there. You could print them, you could PDF them and put them somewhere else, right, as your backup system as well. This is all really, really great. I will make sure I read out any more that pop in. Thanks for the heads up that y'all can't see it. But again, as we're wrapping up today, let's take a moment to review what we've accomplished in our time together. So hopefully after today, you can identify a bookkeeping style and the system that works for you, that you can follow for your business. You have thought about ways that you can store your business records or level up what you are already doing to store your business records. Excuse me. And you're thinking about a way to also back up those records if that's not something that you're doing already. We really want this information. We hope that it's valuable for you. We hope that it's actionable, right, for your business. And we look forward to seeing you all again at another Thriving Childcare Business Academy webinar in the future. And we encourage you to visit. I'm going to put it up in just a moment, but it's www.decal.ga.gov/thriving to access additional resources and reference material. There is a ton of information on that website that can help you as you're moving forward with your business, and it is in the chat for everyone. Thank you. So there it is also on the screen for you. So for more information, visit the Decal Thriving Childcare Business Academy website. There it is. You can, did you give us the name of the machine? I will read it again. Yes, it was the Epson Rapid Receipt Scanner. Go forth and Google. Yeah, I bet there's a lot of interest in that. But go on to the Decal Thriving Childcare Business Academy, look for resources there. Browse the entire library of self-study guides on topics related to your childcare business. You can also learn about and register for upcoming webinars. We're going to be doing 2 of those a month through August 2024. So there's a lot of information coming. You can also go on there and register for our small study groups. And these study groups are really cool. They are capped at 10 participants. And they're a great opportunity for you to take a deeper dive into topics that are relevant to running a childcare business right now. And you can see the topics on the screen here, right? So the small size of these groups allows you to get a much more personalized, to help you get personalized help on the issues that are affecting your childcare business. Yeah, you can have more of a one-on-one experience with a coach, a 10-on-1 experience with a coach as you go through it. These are also, you get 4 state-approved training hours and a $300 stipend for each small study group track that you successfully complete. So there's a lot of value, informational value there, plus the hours and the stipend, which is, of course, lovely. So we highly recommend that you go on there. The link is in the chat. I will say, because it's in there again one more time, the Epson Rapid Receipt Scanner that somebody chimed in and said that they were about $400. So it looks like it is an investment, but hey, if that works for you and that works for your business and your time, then there you go. Well, wonderful. If you have other questions, please put it in the Q&A or into the chat. We've got 10 more minutes on our time, so I will definitely be here and continue to answer questions. And then, yeah, as Margaret just put in the chat there, if you've not done so already, please enter your name and your PDS number into the chat. That's really going to help us with attendance and to get you your certificates and your get those awarded for you. So if you haven't yet, put that in the chat. If you have other questions, I would love to answer other questions for you about, bookkeeping or record keeping. Feels like a long time ago that we talked about record keeping now. But yeah, if you have other questions or anything else I can help with, I'm here. Otherwise, we hope to see you at another Decal Thriving Childcare Business Academy webinar in the future, or certainly our small study groups as well. Highly recommend those. Thank you. I'm so glad this was helpful. So you are free. But I'm gonna hang on the line here and look at the screen awkwardly in case anybody else has any questions. But have a great day. Did you say the small study groups are and how you get this? Yes, that is how you get the stipend. So there's more information on the website. But once you complete a small study group, you do get that $300 stipend plus the 4 state approved training hours. So you can find more information. I think the link is just a little bit back up in the chat. Please do check it out. There's a lot of really, really great information in those 5 small study groups. And we really think that we spent a lot of time getting those together, and we really think you're gonna like them. You're starting a small study group next week. Oh, wonderful. That's great. Well, wonderful. Okay, still here to answer any questions that you may have. We'll stay on for a few more minutes, but I hope you all have a great day. It is Little Friday, as one of my colleagues calls it, which I really like. And have a great one. Let's see, somebody just asked, will there be another Zoom for maximizing tax savings end of year? Margaret, can you help me answer that question?
Sure. We are not having another session on year-end planning for that particular topic, but the recording of that webinar is available on that Thriving Childcare Business Academy website. I can put that link in the chat as well.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks all. And thanks for your nice notes on your way out. I appreciate it. I'm really glad that this was helpful for folks. Great. There's that YouTube link on the maximizing tax savings so that you can see it. Oh, thanks, Deanna. I appreciate that. I get weirdly jazzed talking about record keeping. It's fun. Big fan. Okay. Any last call for questions? I appreciate everyone's involvement in the chat. Sometimes webinars are awkward when you're like basically the only one talking, so I really appreciate that. Okay, my friends, if you have any other questions, I definitely recommend going on to decal.ga.gov/thriving. You will probably find an answer to it there, or a resource for it as well. It has been a pleasure spending this hour with you today, and I hope everybody has a great end of their day and a great upcoming weekend. Bye-bye.